Bueno, segundo acto. Introducirlo yo no creo que introducía a Ambrose como archiconocido, uno de los grandes artistas de libertad, con una obra muy consecuente, muy seria y como digo, un gran aprecio que le tengo de hace muchos años. A veces tenemos nuestras variaciones de opiniones, pero bueno, estamos en el estado. Y claro, esto se va a ver ahora, claro. Porque, bueno, John me preguntó ahora, ¿cuándo fue? El viernes. Dice, mira, ¿a ti te importaría hacer la introducción para lo de Ambrose? Digo, no, claro, sí, sobre el arte conceptual. Y a los 2 minutos me entró ganas de ir al Choices. ¿Con qué?
Eso que entró
sí. Espera. Esto es parte de la historia. Me entró la gana de ver, con que voy para allá y hago así y empiezo a ver y de pronto empiezo a pensar que a veces me vienen buenos pensamientos cuando estoy meando. Claro, yo creo que nos pasa a todos. Bueno, y mientras que estoy meando, digo, bueno, el arte conceptual. Y vamos a abrir un poco la idea de lo conceptual y digo, bueno, puede haber una cocina conceptual, cookery, conceptual cookery, something like that exists. Porque te decimos, existe o no existe, o ya no lo explicará, el arte conceptual. Bueno, puede haber una cocina conceptual, puede haber, esto me ando, y puede haber un deporte conceptual. ¿Y qué sería aquello? ¿Cómo sería un deporte conceptual? Lo mismo que una cocina conceptual. Y ya claro, puede haber sexo conceptual. ¿Y qué sería el sexo conceptual? Bueno, ya, y entonces ya hice lo que había hecho y me vine para acá. Pero sentándome digo, bueno, esto es idea del arte, porque todos sabemos que en la Grecia antigua ahí estaban las musas, las 9 musas, en el monte Helicon con Apolo. Y si miramos la lista de lo que representaba el arte, ahí por ejemplo, hasta la astronomía estaba como parte del concepto del arte de los griegos. Y claro, eso cuando decimos el arte conceptual, pero ¿qué queremos decir con el arte conceptual?
Eso es lo que lo decía Ambrose.
Exacto. Okay. No se olviden de conceptual cookery, conceptual sports y conceptual sex to be discussed. Okay? Con que Ambrose, a ti.
Esta obra, this work, this shot in the retreat, and this work, the handmade bed. The retreat, if you go into the exhibition, you'll be forgiven to think that you are in the Museum of Natural History in London. Because really the shark in the retreat belongs in the Natural History Museum. And the handmade bed, you can be forgiven for having gone into a hotel room before the maid came to tidy the room up. No? That's possible. So, what has happened in art for those 2 items to be considered as art, be placed in galleries, have people pay to go in, to look at these things, and then convince them they're looking at art. Because if they were not placed in a gallery, nobody would call them art, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
It's the fact that they were placed in a gallery that people said this must be art. Now it could be good art, it could be bad art, it could be mediocre art. But the fact is, it's art. But how did we get there? That is the first part of what I want to say. How did we get there? Bueno. Right. the Egyptians. The Egyptians are amazing because the Egyptians have a concept of themselves of a mighty people, of a mighty empire for thousands of years. And their work reflects that pride and that sense of grandeur that Egypt had. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start with a chap called Homer. Now Homer, a Greek, un montón, 5,600 years ago, un montón de tiempo. El tío era un fiction writer. He wrote fiction. Not only did he write fiction, he wrote fiction for children. If you read anything that's written, it comes right out of Hollywood. It comes out of Spider-Man, Superman, all the superhero movies. He wrote very well. He wrote so well that the people started to believe his stories. It reached such a point he wrote the Odyssey, by the way, and he wrote the Iliad. So you want to have nightmares, you read those stories. That's brilliant. And he did so well with his story writing that the artist started to make images of what he had done. So this is the Lacoon. And the Lacoon is a story about... Anyway, it's a punishment of the gods. This Lacoon was the Ucivato. And the gods... Poseidon se enfadó con él y le mandó la serpiente para matar a los hijos. Now, what I want to introduce is a thought of these artists, as they were brilliant craftsmen, absolutely brilliant, were illustrators. They were illustrating stories. They were illustrating poetry. Si tuviera aquí Juan, no entendería. They were illustrating poetry. The artist had very little say in what he invented, what he created. The priest would give him, like Toria de Ete, come on, do the best you can, make me a nice image of this story. And so on in all the Greeks were like that. Entonces, they were so well written that the hoi polloi of the Greeks said, we're going to make a religion out of this. We're going to make a religion out of these fictions. And everybody has to offer sacrifices to the gods. To call them gods. Qué locura, ¿no? Estamos hablando, el tío escribiendo su librito. And these people get hold of it and they create a massive religion. Hablando de los griegos y de Homer, a fiction writer for children, stories for children. And then the bosses of Greece made a religion out of it. And they forced the people to sacrifice to these statues. Yeah? So this is one example of the Greek sculpture. But then the Romans came. And the Romans kicked out the Greeks. Una guerra, big war, echaron los griegos fuera. So now the Romans are they got the dominion of the world, the known world. Claro, Homer was Greek. Pero claro, the Romans said, gosh, look at these beautiful works. Now, we haven't got Homer. We don't have, in Rome, we don't have anybody of the caliber of this guy. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We pinch their gods, their statues, their history, and we call it by another name. So that's what they did. Hercules became Hercules. So all they did was pinch everything that the Greeks had invented and they carried on the tradition. They also made a religion of fiction. And the artist, consequently, this is the bull jumping over Europa. This is another madness. This is a painting and it depicts another revenge story. One of the gods got upset with one of the girls and they sent the bull to sort it out. So, again, another illustration of a narrative, an illustration of a writing. From there, obviously, the Romans came. Hercules created Gibraltar? Hercules was given 10 tasks to perform, and one of them was to go to on his way to completing the 12 tasks, Hercules had to cross the Atlas Mountains. Instead of climbing the Great Mountain, Hercules used his superhuman strength to smash through it. By doing so, he connected the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea and formed the Strait of Gibraltar. One part of the split mountain is Gibraltar, and the other is Jabal Musa. These two mountains, taken together, are simply known as the Pyramids of Hercules. Pero tú la locura, de Homer, tío, una imaginación increíble, tío, increíble, tío, el más grande de todo. He's an amazing guy. Entonces, we've got the Romans pinching all the arts and all the history and all the writing of the Greeks, and the Romans sitting pretty with all their empire. And then what happens? The Emperor Constantine gets a vision from heaven. He's going to war against someone. And he gets a vision from heaven and he sees it's a sword by the shape of a cross. Now, at that time there were Christians in Rome. Jesus had come, he preached the gospel, there were lots of Christians in Rome. And, well, he's a very clever man. He knew that the Christian religion was going to overtake. So he converted Rome into Christianity. There's the, aquí arriba está, aquí está la moneda de Constantine, sorry, está la moneda de Constantine, aquí está lo que él vio en el cielo, and he put it on his coins. Okay.
The sun, sorry, Victus.
Sí, exactly. And then came the Christian era. So, now we have Homer on one side, and Homer continues to Greece and Rome. But now we have another narrative happening. The Christian narrative. Now the Christian narrative is another fiction to some, or true to others. Because we have this dead person coming back to life. And not only coming back to life, but it's got lots of people that say the city, a lot of people who are following him and they're following the air. But then the Gospels get written. The Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the epistles get written. And what do the artists do? They paint the narrative, they illustrate. So up from Homer down to the Renaissance, we are getting illustrators. We are not getting artists with their original ideas. It's not allowed by the authorities. They're told what to paint, even how to paint it in some cases, because in the case of the Greco, because we painted the spolio era. ¿Cómo se llenó? Que tuvo que ir a los...
El martirio de San Mauricio de Cristo.
No, cuando puso Cristo que estaba más bajito que los demás. Que estaba metido todo colorado.
El polio.
He painted the spolio where Christ was being whipped, but his head was not the tallest. The tallest was the guys that were hitting him. Y lo llevaron a la Inquisición y tuvo que responder si el hombre, oh, okay. Pero se salvó, porque dijo, he's the only one full length. Todos los demás eran la parte del cuerpo, nada más. So he managed to get away with it. But just to show you how painters, artists have been illustrating the narrative all through these thousands of years. That's the Last Supper is completely not true. This is nonsense. Se equivocó Leonardo, and that's it. Nadie está... La gente no se sentaba en la mesa en esos días. La gente se tiraba en el suelo para comer. Se echaban para un lado, cogían y comían así. Esto todo es cuento. Anyway.
¿Es el conceptual? ¿Es el conceptual?
No puede ser.
Claro, me da vuelta.
Y aquí está Michelangelo, tú dices, the main illustrator de todo ello. Cuando hizo el Sistine Chapel, tío, era horroroso. I mean, even the bullet straits está pintado. Everything's painted there. Even not only the images, but the actual bullet straits there, they're all painted. The Tío, increíble. And then we've got the other great one, which is Raphael. He also illustrated the Gospels. So all these artists are working from a text. They are not coming up with their own ideas. Their brain only works in terms of artesania, the hands. Now, that's only part of the truth. Because these people were talking to us, apart from what they painted, how they painted, how they composed. That is the artist's proper message. But that is for another time. Okay, right, and then the Reformation came, why Catholic priests and Fallopian and Papa. And I said, oh, I'm fed up with the Catholic Church, they don't give me answers, I'm asking for answers, nobody has the answer. It's a lot, nobody gives me answers, but the teachers don't tell me what I want to know. Luther se enfadó al máximo, se salió de la iglesia, no se salió de la religión, pero y se escribió una carta and he painted on Wittenberg Cathedral, and he started the Protestant Revolution. There was a big split. But the Protestant artists continued doing the same thing. They continued illustrating the narrative. And now, right. And now I'm going to move on to the Academy. Now, the Academy is a very interesting place because the Academy, the first Academy was in 1517. No, sorry, in 1563. In Florence, and from then on, the other academies came on. But the one that I want to touch on is the French Academy. The Académie Royale de Sculpture was first established a codified hierarchy of genres. This is what it did. They codified a hierarchy of genres in 1669. The Academy Secretary, André Febelin, had ranked history paintings as the most scholarly and edifying genre, followed in diminishing rank by portraiture, genre painting, landscape and still lifes. History paintings were large works illustrating subjects taken from classical mythology, the Bible, literature, or the important historical events. Todavía está metido ahí. They're still illustrating the text. They're still illustrating the writings. Still are not free. And this is the Razzo de Medusa. It actually happened. A ship sank, and the survivors. An example is the oversized painting that depicts a moment after the aftermath of the wreck of the French naval frigate Meduse, which ran aground on the coast of today's Mauritania on 1816. On July 1816, at least 147 people were left adrift on a hurriedly constructed raft. All but 15 died in 13 days before they were rescued. The event became an international scandal in part because its cause was widely attributed to the incompetence of the French captain. He actually constructed the raft in his patio because he wanted to do it completely as it was. So he got the newspapers and he read all the newspapers and this is produced a fantastic piece of work. But again, illustrating a narrative. Okay, I think you got it, no?
Yeah.
Así que the painters are as thick as two short planks. No, that's very famous. Todo lo que tienen son manos y ojos, no tienen cabeza. Okay, and now we come to 1849, because here toda la producción cambia.
Before.
They gave you a line,
But with everything that we've seen up to now, is it art?
Well, that's everybody has his own idea of what that is.
Bueno,
Yo lo que decía
but is it art?
Well,
Would you not show that is it art?
Yo lo que sí, I would say yes.
No.
Okay, now we come to 1849.
Mira, escucha aquí.
You want to go for a peek?
And we have a rebel in the group, in the academy. un señor llamado Gustave Courbet. Y Gustave Courbet began to think. He began to use his brain. And he said, he invented, well, he didn't know what he was doing, but he did realism. And he says, I want to paint my way of seeing. My way of seeing. Not so much my way of thinking, but my way of seeing. Because he was the first one that started to look to life with his eyes. Courbet said, he could not paint an angel because he had never seen one. Fair enough. It's true. One day on the road, I stopped to consider two men breaking stones on the road. One rarely encounters the most complete expression of poverty. So right there, on the spot, I got an idea for a painting. I made a date to meet them in my studio the following morning. And that is the Stonebreakers. The Stonebreakers was controversial at the Paris Salon, I wonder why. The depiction of realistic subjects who were toiling in misery was considered inappropriate. It was said that the painting scandalized those who attended the Paris Salon. Claro, even though he had broken the hierarchy of the academy. But he was the first one to start to look at it. There's another painting by him which is a funeral. And everybody's there telling them, mourn, están ahí con la cara. It's a very sad painting, but it goes to show that he started to look at life. The first time it happened, somebody started to look at life. Not read a book, an illustrated book, but look at life and see what happens. So then after that, quickly after that, came Impressionism. And with Impressionism we get Monet, looking at life, going to Venice, seeing something and painting it. And this is the first Impressionist painting that was created by Monet. It's called Impression. And then we have Post-Impressionism. But I'm wanting to go the way to look at Impressionism because what we're seeing here is the effect of light on the eyes of the artist. And what he saw, what the effect it had, the impression he got when he first saw it. He didn't look into study into it, the size of the book. No, he got the impression and he painted because something attacked his eyes. But when we get to Cézanne, he's still painting now with his eyes, he's going out, se ha olvidado de la tontería de Roma, and now wants to paint what he sees, what he lives, what he experiences. Pero este Cézanne, él sabe que si yo miro a este vaso, a esta lámpara, yo la miro y la dibujo, ya estoy cambiando la cabeza, por ejemplo, porque la estoy viendo y la cabeza mía tiene que dar la vuelta a lo dibujar. Y la miro otra vez, pero ya no estoy en el mismo sitio. Yo no puedo tener la lista en el mismo sitio que la tenía antes. My eyes are not in the same place. And this is why we're getting painting in this way. Little touches of color. Un toquecito aquí, un toquecito, because he could never be sure where it was. It was not using aerial perspective that was invented in the Renaissance. He was working with his eyes only. So now we have another guy thinking now, not only looking, but thinking of what he is looking at and the mechanism of looking with Cézanne. And then we have now, I don't know if you saw that, but you didn't see it. But here we have another way of seeing and making art. Looking inside of yourself, looking into your feelings. He never did that. It was all about illustration. It's all about Impressionism, or Post-Impressionism, but now we got to Expressionism. And now the artist is letting his feeling go out, and paints what he feels. So the artist now is becoming liberated.
I don't know.
Norwegian.
And we get to Pablo Picasso, who turned the world upside down. When he painted this painting, it was 13 years before it was shown in public. And his friends would come and see it, and once they left their house, they said, Picasso lo vamos a ver colgado de los rafters. Este tío te está volviendo loco. Pero cuando estamos los dos. Claro, Picasso es man. O maybe Duchamp. No sé. That's a debate. Duchamp y Picasso, no se sabe, ¿no? ¿Cuál es?
Lo que
El grande.
Picasso.
And this guy is amazing because he's taken on so many levels of thinking, which is incredible to end up with this piece of work. He's completely destroyed perspective, he's destroyed anatomy, he's destroyed everything, and he's come up with space. Because we are surrounded by space. But how is an object? Space is a thing. How do you paint space? Well, he's the one the nearest or the first one to think about space, the relationship between things, and how we see. Because even though this one is, I'll put this one because it's very powerful work, but he would want to paint something from the front, from the back, from the side, because the object contains front, back, and sides, and he wants to say everything to us. So we've got a thinking artist now. We've got somebody who's thinking about life and how to create work. So I think now, and this is Duchamp. Marcel Duchamp was a cubist painter. And this is one of his works, The New Descending Staircase. Right. This is very important because this is the crucial point of the change into conceptual art. At the moment when we've seen art for the eyes, we've seen art that we have to look at to appreciate. We've seen art that titillates our vision. We want to see it. If we don't see it, somebody will explain to me a painting, but no, it doesn't do justice. So we need to see art for the eyes. That's what we've seen up to now. But during the First World War, at the end of the First World War, that was one of the negative reactions to the horrors of World War I. This international movement was begun by a group of artists, poets associated with Cabaret Voltaire in Zurich. Dada rejected reason and logic, prizing nonsense, irrationality, and intuition. The movement primarily involved visual arts, literature, poetry, and manifestos, art theatre, and graphic design, and concentrated its anti-war politics through a rejection of the prevailing standards in arts, the academy, through anti-art cultural works. In addition to being anti-war, Dada was also anti-bourgeois and had political affinity with the radical left. This is the beginning of the revolution. The artists are completely dissatisfied with the result of World War I, which we know was horrendous. Whole streets. I used to live in Lancashire for quite a number of years, and the stories that I heard was that they would send whole streets to the war and nobody would come back. So you get a street of young men missing. And it wasn't repeated in the Second World War. They would sort them out, they would mix them up. At the beginning they did that. So this is the reaction of the artists against the First World War and the massacre that occurred in the First World War. So there we have that this Dadaists are looking at their rejected reason, they rejected logic, and they prized nonsense, irrationality, and intuition. I think that is the seed from where conceptual art comes. Any questions? Any disagreements? Me quedo callado, ¿qué?
We're just waiting. Wow.
Okay, now we come to Duchamp, because Duchamp, in my mind, was the first. Conceptual ha existido in the past again, but that is a different story. We're talking about the modern term of conceptual art. Duchamp was not interested in what is called retinal art. He painted and he gave up painting and he started to create different things. He wasn't interested. Retinal art is art for the eyes. Art that you have to have it in front of you. Una pintura, una cultura, something you have to look at. He was not interested in that. Art that was only visual. By Duchamp and two of his friends, together with an editorial with related articles that provides a scathing response to the censorship imposed by the society, barring Fountain from the exhibition. The Richard Matt case published opposite Stiglitz's photograph and anonymously penned by Duchamp, Rocher and Wood. The article concludes with an assertion that has proved foundational to subsequent generations of modern and contemporary artists, paving the way for overtly conceptual approaches to art making. The three editors emphasize, and this is it, whether Mr. Matt with his own hands made the fountain or not has no importance. He chose it. He took an ordinary article of life, placed it so that its useful significance disappeared under the new title and point of view, and created a new thoughtful art object. There you have it. So, quiero decir que yo, como artista que soy, todo lo que tengo que hacer es decir, esa lata de Coca-Cola, esa copa del vino, el remote control, la mesa. Venga, an exhibition. ¿Estamos locos o qué? ¿No? ¿Normal? ¿Es normal?
Well, it was a protest at the time. It was like a protest at the time.
Sorry?
It was a protest.
Which one was the protest?
The protest is that they were fed up with the art world as it was.
See, that's where it comes from.
Well, no, I think it's carried on for a long time anyway, all this ready-made. So.
See, now I'm not sure if what they were getting us is mockery, making fun of the art world, or they were trying to disturb the whole hierarchy that New York and the whole world have formed of art. Because art is very elitist.
Yes.
Art really is dictated by the powers that be. They give you an exhibition, they give you an exhibition. They control what's happening, no? So, but there it is. And so, this guy decided that everything that he points at is art. So he did a lot more work.
At what point does
Now,
still life come in? Is it before this or after?
Say again?
Still life.
Still life.
Yeah. At what point does that come in? Before?
You
or
mean
after?
a painted still life?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dutch.
The
The Dutch started it off, didn't they?
The 17th century,
17th century.
Decorative painting for the house, the flowers, and
The Protestant break.
Sí, bueno, que también with the Netherlands, and that's where it starts,
They couldn't paint
they
the
want to
saints.
show how rich they are. That's part of the agenda of
Yeah.
Dutch still life. You know how much silver they have, they want to show it all. Por el East India Company pues estaban entrando una cantidad de dinero horrorosa. So it's part of the image, you know, plenty.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's true.
Mm.
So, we are now found in a situation that if I'm allowed now as an artist to call an object a piece of art, I don't need to go to any school to train about anything, do I? I don't need skills, I don't need talent, artistic talent. But now what I need to be is very clever and have a friend to agree with me. Because you need two people to make art. 3 is even better, but at least 2.
And a journalist.
Sí, claro.
I would have a journalist.
Sí, por eso es que tenía 3. So you got the guy who says this is art, Gino agrees with me, and then the panorama that comes and takes a photograph of it. And that's it, it's going to argue with me. Nobody's going to argue with me. Vale, so I'm going to sell it for £1,000. Puede llegar otro, I'll buy it for you, this is fantastic. That's it, it's made. I'm afraid this is where we live today. Now, can we see now how it's possible for the although it's possible now for Damien Hirst to have phoned California, a fishing company in California, please, can you fish me a white shark? I don't know, a shark. Can you get me a shark? Yes, how much is it going to cost me? Can you deliver it? So they go fishing, get a shark, they take it to England, they put it in formaldehyde, he puts it in a cabinet, and he calls it a fantastic name. The impossibility of death in the mind of a living being. How do I say it? See, how do I sing it?
That sounds a bit like
The impossibility of in the mind of death in a living being. Okay, now, we know that Duchamp and Dada were nihilistic people that were not coming from a positive thing. They did not want to enhance life.
But there was also Hume in Dada. There was a
And
lot
there was
of
a
Hume and
fun-
fun, and they used to have a lot of
Pues sí,
fun.
pero
So part of all this is cachondeo.
sí, pero cachondeo de algo, de
Ah,
alguien.
sí.
Se estaban cachondeando de alguien, y estaban dando los feos al establishment.
Claro.
So they come from not an enhancing point of view. It didn't come from a place that they wanted to beautify your life or to make you feel comfortable or happy. No, they wanted to bring controversy and political thinking and obviously left-wing ideas as well against the right-wingers. Today, conceptual art doesn't come from there. They come from cleverness. Let's see who's going to be the cleverest. And because we are now in a state of mind that we have been creating conceptual art since I did a few pieces in 1972. And I did some pieces in 1972 because I've been to London and I've seen the work there in the 1970s. So from the 60s, from the 50s, conceptual art has been a thing. Not in the negative way, but in a clever way. I don't know how to put it, really. Porque, well, let's have a look at hers. I like the idea of a thing to describe a feeling. It shows the shark is frightening, bigger than you, in an environment unknown to you. I like ideas of trying to understand the world and taking things out of the world. I hope at first glance it will look alive. It could have to do with the obsession with trying to make dead things alive or the living live forever. He is obsessed with life and death. Daniels is all about life and death. That is what preoccupies him. And I think he wanted to shock us with the... Now the thing is, as I said at the beginning, that without the text, you don't understand what you're looking at. Or you understand what you're looking at, but because it's an art gallery, you're looking for meaning. Or anyway, that's what I think. That if you go to an art gallery, you're looking for meaning. Maybe you don't realize that, but you're looking for meaning because you're looking at that work of art and it's talking to you, you say, I love it, I like it. If you start to analyze why you like it, it's because it's touching you somewhere. If you reject it, it's touching you somewhere else. So we're looking for meaning all the time in art. Art is supposed to be that. It's to be a translation of what we can say in words for every single one. And we are putting it in poetry form because all art is poetry at the end of the day. So the problem that I have with this is that if I don't read the book, I don't understand what I'm looking at. I will enjoy it or reject it, but I don't know what the artist is trying to tell me. And that for me is the weakness of conceptual art. That you need the book to know what you're looking at. Now, if we go to...
Maybe it's the reversal of what Homer. If Homer, we have the story, and then we get the narrative. Here we have the work, and then we have the rich of the narrative.
If the artist decides to write it, if he leaves it like that...
I don't know, I mean, I feel that way with every art. Like even with Homer, if I wouldn't have known what Homer was writing or whatever, I wouldn't know what he's trying to portray. It's still subjective.
Yeah, but with Homer you get a picture in your mind. So even if you don't get to the bottom of what he's trying to say, you still give you a story. You can get something out. No?
But at the same conceptual art.
Sorry?
The same with conceptual
See?
art. You've got an image, you've got something that you're feasting your eyes on.
See, but when you see it in a gallery, it changes the
It
whole
has to be
concept.
out of context.
Right.
Like the bed, if you went to a bedroom and there was a bed with a rug and all that, and somebody said, oh, this is art, and said, no, it's a room with a bed. with somebody's studio, you know. You would
Maybe.
never make it up, you
With-
never exhibit it up.
With Homer, I mean, you
Yeah.
get what I see, can we have an image of the transfiguration and a file, but to get Homer and the Iliad, you have, en la poesía, there's time factor. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, you don't get the work, you don't get the Iliad like, boom.
Yeah.
No, and with music, which is another art, the same thing, you have to give maybe 45 minutes for Beethoven 5, so you can hear the work aquí, as a thing, boom,
And that bed would be an
yeah.
art museum if it wasn't in the gallery.
Sí. Sí.
No,
Sí.
it wouldn't be an art museum if it wasn't in the
Yeah.
gallery. In fact, it's taking it
Entonces,
away.
time factor,
Sí, it's more
sí.
place.
La gana de Prefiere, la ve, boom.
Okay, 20 seconds. The idea of my bed was inspired. Sorry.
Even the poet has a poet's license. I think what the artist was doing at the time was obtaining an artist's license. And what that does is it stops, it impedes, it allows compensation. Whereas before everything was very, very restricted with techniques and what you should do, and we had school of arts.
Exactly.
And I think what the artist was doing was breaking all these barriers.
Yes.
Because they were both doing the still life and, the landscape and all the rest.
That's right. And that all starts with Dada.
And
Dada was the one
in essence, that's
gave
what
the
they were
freedom
trying
to
to
do
obtain
that.
artist license to do as they please. With
See.
no restrictions whatsoever.
Yeah.
And be able to be creative in whatever field
Yes.
and
The way
whatever
it's
form
painted,
they wish to do.
Yes.
Well,
And that's what I'm trying to show. It wasn't always like that.
No,
There came a change, that the fact that the artist found freedom to the extent que un artista italiano cagó, lo puso en una
Oh,
lata,
I saw that.
lo cerró y le llamó mierda de artista y la vendía. Otro cogió un globo de cristal, lo llenó de aire de París y lo vendió como era de París.
I suppose every time the pendulum is at one end, it needs to swing to the other end.
Sí.
Or it gets a counter-evolution, but to an extreme before the pendulum sort of goes in between. And I think this is what happened with modern art. The pendulum swung the other way. You get all these ridiculous sort of pieces of art. But it needed to do that,
Do you think?
in order to liberate the art.
Sí.
For the artist not to be constricted in any form.
I guess I mean, if you've been exposed to modern art, whatever that is, and to conceptual art, when you look at El Espolio del Greco, your mind has already been asked to take the conceptual in, and it affects me when I look at El Greco after having seen the conceptual plan. I see it in a different way. Y que otra cosa también, que a lot of the examples have been very Eurocentric, very European. No ha salido nada del Oriente ni África.
some cases,
The artists, all.
Some conceptual artists will tell you that you don't even need an object. All you need is the idea of the object. So one guy went to the desert, he drilled a hole, and he placed a gold rod right into the earth, then he covered it. He filmed it. So where is it? Doesn't matter, because it's the idea that counts. But what are we saying? That the traditional arts haven't got ideas? Surely not. We can't be saying that traditional art have no ideas. If they are saying that what counts is the idea.
The pendulum is halfway. What they're talking about is installations, in effect. This is what installation is about. No?
See, that is an
That the
installation.
idea is important rather than the actual skills and the talent.
We'll see what Tracy has to say about the bed. The idea for my bed was inspired by a sexual yet impressive phase in my life when I remained in bed for 4 days without eating or drinking anything but alcohol. When I looked at the vile, repulsive mess that had accumulated in my room, I suddenly realized what I had created. Because
So there's loads of rooms like that all over the world.
I've been ardently defending my bed against critics who treated it as a farce and claimed that anyone could achieve an handmade bed. To this claims the artist, you thought, well, they did it? No one ever done before. So, what happens here? The galerita, the Galleria Tate, is already able to receive the bed, not like the one in Duchamp. The curates are not ready to receive the fountain, or the Massaro. But Tate is already ready to say, okay, wait there, Tracy, I can handmade bed.
Where did you see it first in an art group?
In the Tate Gallery.
No, where did the Galerica see that? That
No,
bed that
she
she
said
didn't
the
see in the Tate
Gallery.
Gallery?
Poi she took photographs of the bed.
In her
Tutto
room.
tutto la galeretta, dice, mira lo che crea, una campana, che buena idea, come quello era Tate. Claro, because she gives us this sad story about how unwell she was and everything, we warm up to it.
It becomes very personal.
Pero la primera vez que se puso esta pieza fue con Young British Artists.
That's right.
En Sachi Gallery.
In Sachi Gallery.
Cuando hicieron la exposición Sensations. Y ahí
Letters or something.
ya creo que quería tener otro tema.
Did I hear?
Era un tema
Somebody
de
who had your
Antunich, que lo puede llevar a pasar a 500 años, pero lo terminaron con la tecnología o el mundo cómo funciona hoy en día su advertising.
Y que también es una obra muy realista. Lo que te da es como the blue painting de Yves Klein. Se dice blue, porque ves.
Who was Tracy before the bed? What had Tracy done before the bed? Anything else?
Tracy see, it's so intense. All the
So she was
people.
already well established.
She'd
She'd already done, had a friend.
She made a tent that all the people of the in their lives.
She was creating them.
Well, she was already well known. She had a friend and a journalist.
Her autobiography is very interesting. The Tracy is very.
She's what I would call a confessional artist. She paints the life she lives, como vive, sale de la fuera, ¿no? She's a confessional artist.
Sí, vas, como decía allí, good intentions no make a good work. Tú puedes decir, my suffering of
Okay, final thought on this matter is that no matter what we look at, it seems to me that whatever reason for creating art, I think is constant form. The composer has music notes, the writer has, and the poet has words, the sculptor has the earth they walk on, the painter has colours, the dancer has movement, the singer has voice. Without forms there can be no art. The artist cannot be separated from the forms. So whether we like what the artists are producing or we don't like, you can't separate the artist. Without a form there is no artist. The artist must contain a form and express himself through that form. So I thought I'd give you thoughtful thoughts. Oh, comes to mind local works in Gibraltar. For ejemplo, no está aquí hoy ¿cómo se llama muchacho? Stefano, que ganó con el Ready Made de los cubos. Y también Shane puso un ladrillo, ¿no? ¿Verdad, Shane? Sí, puso un ladrillo. Y hay varias ocasiones que personas han usado ready-mades as part of art. And you always see it accepted in your voice without no problem. So I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions?